Good day everyone, I am Xhaviera Miguel and I'll continue discussing about the financial reporting system. So I'll discuss the controlling of the general ledger or the financial reporting system. So there are potential risks to the financial reporting system. It includes defective audit trail. So dito pwedeng merong mali dun sa pag-trace ng mga source documents. Next, there might be unauthorized access to the general ledger. So, it may lead to the manipulation of data kapag merong unauthorized access. Next one, general ledger accounts are not equal with the subsidiary accounts. Kasi, dapat same input lang yung nasa general ledger, ganun din sa subsidiary accounts. So, there might be a risk na hindi balance yung mga accounts dito. Next one, is the incorrect general ledger account balances because of unauthorized or incorrect journal vouchers. So, itong journal vouchers po kasi ay is a written authorization po ng pag-enter ng mga balances or ng mga transactions dun sa ating general ledger. So, let's proceed to the COSO control issues. It includes the transaction authorization, segregation of duties, access control, accounting records, and independent verification. So, transaction authorization, important dito yung journal voucher natin. As I've said, journal voucher is a written document that authorizes an entry to the general ledger. So, sa bawat transaction, kinakailangan ng journal voucher para ma-enter yung mga accounts dun sa general ledger. And it contains important info about the transaction. Kaya dapat properly authorized po yung journal vouchers natin. It should be properly authorized by a responsible man. So let's proceed to the segregation of duties. Individuals with access authority to general ledger accounts should not have record-keeping responsibility for special journals or subsidiary ledgers. They should not prepare journal vouchers and they should not have custody of physical assets. So the next control issue is the access controls. So as I've said a while back, unauthorized access to the general ledger accounts may lead to manipulation of data. It can also result in errors, fraud, and misinterpretations in financial statements. So, yung organizations are required to implement controls that limit database access to authorized individuals only. So, for example, computerized system yung ginagamit, dapat yung authorized personnel lamang yung nakakaalam ng username and password to access the database or to access those general ledger accounts. So, the next one is the accounting records. So, dito, important po na ginagawa yung audit trail. So, audit trail is a record of the path that a transaction takes through the input, processing, and output phases of transaction processing. So, dito, itatrace nila yung source documents from the input to the output phases. In addition, audit trail involves a network of documents, journals, and ledgers which ensure that a transaction can be accurately traced through the system from initiation to final disposition, and it facilitates error prevention and correction when the data files are conveniently and logically organized. So dapat talaga organize po yung ating audit trail para hindi magkaroon ng issues or misinterpretation sa mga data natin. So take note that the general ledger and other files should be detailed and rich enough to provide the ability to answer inquiries, for example, from customers or vendors. It should be able to reconstruct files if they are completely or partially destroyed. It should provide historical data required by auditors, it should fulfill government regulations, and it should provide a means for preventing, detecting, and correcting errors. So the next one is the independent verification. So i-reconcile or i-compare nila yung data from the journal voucher to the summarized data. So may ginagamit na operational reports which are the journal voucher listing and the general ledger change report. So this provide proof of the accuracy of the process. So the journal voucher listing provides relevant details about each journal voucher posted to the general ledger, and the general ledger change report presents the effects of journal voucher postings to the general ledger accounts. So now let's proceed to the internal control implications of XBRL. So, madidiscuss natin dito yung taxonomy creation, taxonomy mapping error, and validation of instance documents. So, let's proceed to the taxonomy creation. So, ang taxonomy po kasi ay generate for the codes po ng mga accounts natin for a specific transaction. So, incorrectly generated taxonomy may result to an incorrect mapping between data and taxonomy elements. This could result in material misrepresentation of financial data. So, sabi rito, controls must be designed and put in place to ensure the correct generation of XBRL taxonomy. So, for example po, yung code imbis na code ng cash yung nailagay mo, sa ibang asset mo siya na nailagay, so magkakaroon ng misrepresentation and mahihirapan tayo sa taxonomy mapping. The next one is the taxonomy mapping error. So the process of mapping the internal database accounts to the taxonomy tags needs to be controlled. Sabi nga, correctly generated XBRL tags may be incorrectly assigned to internal database accounts, resulting in material misrepresentation of financial data. So kung mali yung na-generate mo na taxonomy tags, magkakaroon din tayo ng error dito sa taxonomy mapping wherein magre-result ito sa material misrepresentation sa financial statements natin. So the last one is the validation of instance documents. So kapag natapos na natin yung mapping and sa paglagay ng mga tags, XBRL instance documents can be generated. So independent verification procedures need to be established to validate the instance documents to ensure that appropriate taxonomy and tags have been applied before posting to a web server. So, kailangan gawin tong process na to para makita kung may mali ba dun sa mga tags or sa mga taxonomy na in-apply dun sa mga accounts and documents. So, natapos na tayo sa FRS. Now, let's proceed to the management reporting system. So, kung yung FRS po ay magagamit siya for the decision making of external users, the management reporting system naman po ay para po sa internal users natin. So, it focus on the internal control. So, management reporting is often called discretionary reporting because it is not mandated. So, depende po dun sa company kung gagawin niya po ito or hindi. So the factors that influence MRS includes management principles, management function level and decision type, problem structure, types of management reports, responsibility accounting, and behavioral considerations. So management principles includes formalization of task, responsibility and authority, span of control, and management by exception. So first, the formalization of task suggests that management should structure the firm around the task it performs rather than around individuals with unique skills. Organizational areas are subdivided into tasks that represent full-time job positions, and each position must have clearly defined limits of responsibility. So kung ano lang yung na-assign sa kanila na task nila, yun lang yung dapat nilang gawin. So formalization of tasks promote internal control wherein the firm can more easily recruit individuals to fill standard positions left open by those who leave. Management can construct an organization that avoids assigning incompatible tasks to an individual. So ano ba yung implication ng MRS? It allows formal specification of the information needed to support the task. So for example, merong pagbabago sa mga position ng mga employee, yung information na maa-acquire ng bagong employee ay pareho lang dun sa information na hawak nung sinundan niya or nung dati na pinalitan niya. So next is the responsibility and authority. So responsibility refers to an individual's obligation to achieve desired results. If a manager delegates responsibility to a subordinate, he or she must also grant the subordinate the authority to make decisions within the limits of that responsibility. So, in other words, responsibility is equal to the authority na ma-acquire ng isang employee or ng isang subordinate. So, ano naman yung implications for the MRS? So, the manager's location in the reporting channel influences the scope and detail of the information reported. So, nakadepende sa level ng mga managers yung scope ng information na matatanggap nila. Sabi nga, managers at higher levels usually require more summarized information and managers at lower levels receive information that is more detailed. So now let's proceed to the span of control. So it refers to the number of subordinates directly under his or her control. So kung gaano karami yung subordinates na sakop ng authority niya. A firm with a narrow span of control has fewer subordinates reporting directly to managers and have tall, narrow structures with several layers of management. While firms with broad spans of control have more subordinates reporting to each manager and tend to have wide structures with fewer levels of management. So what's the implication for the MRS? So managers with narrow spans of control are closely involved with the details of the operation with specific decisions. So yung mga managers daw sa narrow spans ay merong authority to make decisions dun sa mga operations na ginagawa nila. Pero kapag nasa broad spans of control yung mga managers, subordinates have the authority to make decisions. So let's proceed to the management by exception. It means that instead of being involved with every activity or decision, managers should limit their attention to potential problem areas. So what's the implication for the MRS? Managers need information that identifies operations or resources at risk of going out of control. So, ang information lang na may acquire ng managers by exception ay yung mga information aligned doon sa scope ng responsibility niya or dun sa mga operations or situations na out of control. So take note that reports should support management by exception by focusing on changes in key factors that are symptomatic to potential problems. So yung mga unimportant details or unimportant information na malayo na doon sa scope ng potential problem ay hindi na sinasali doon sa reports. These are excluded na. So the next factor that influence MRS is the management function level and decision type. So it includes strategic planning decision, tactical planning decision, management control decisions, and operational control decisions. So let's discuss first the strategic planning decisions. So strategic planning decisions are made by top-level managers. These decisions include setting the goals and objectives of the firm, determining the scope of business activities, determining or modifying the organization's structure, and setting the management philosophy. So these decisions have long-term time frames and they require highly summarized information and they tend to be non-recurring. So, minsan lang may establish tong ganitong decisions. Hindi naman pwede na annually ka mag-make ng decisions for the uh, goals and objectives ng company. So, these tend to be non-recurring. And they are associated with a high degree of uncertainty. The next, they are broad in scope and have a profound impact on the firm. And lastly, they require external as well as internal sources of information. So para magawa natin tong strategic planning decisions, we need external and internal sources of information para sa for the environment of the business, like that. So now let's discuss the tactical planning decisions. So tactical planning decisions are subordinate to strategic planning decisions. These are made by middle management, and its characteristics are different from the characteristics of strategic decisions. So tactical planning decisions have shorter time frame, and it is more specific, it is recurring, have more certain outcomes, and have lesser impact on the firm than strategic decisions. So now let's discuss about the management control decisions. So management control decisions include motivating managers in all functional areas to use resources productively. So, ginagawa itong management control decisions na to by comparing the performance of a subordinate dun sa pre-established standards. So, meron silang isa-set na standards of the for evaluating the performance ng mga subordinate. So, if the standard is not met, the supervisor takes corrective action, but when met or exceeded, he may be rewarded. So now let's proceed to the operational control decisions. It ensures that the firm operates in accordance with the pre-established criteria. It is narrower and more focused, which are concerned with the routine task of operations. It is more structured, more dependent on details, and have a shorter time frame. So it has three basic elements which are setting standards, evaluating performance, and taking corrective action. So standards are pre-established levels of performance. It is the basis for evaluating performance. So, standards apply to all aspects of operations. So, for example, meron lang silang isa-set na specific quantity or quality ng mga inventory na gagawin nila. So, the next element is the performance evaluation. So, ang mangyayari rito, i-compare na nila yung performance ng operation dun sa standard, kung na-meet ba or hindi yung standard na sinet nila. So, yung difference is called the variance. So, for example, is a price variance of the inventory. It is the difference between the expected price and the actual price. So, kung actual price are greater than the standard, it is unfavorable. Pero kapag the actual price is less than the standard price, it is favorable to the company. So, the last element is taking corrective action. So, pagkatapos ma-evaluate yung performance ng operation, the manager takes action para ayusin yung mga situation that are out of control. So now let's proceed to the problem structure. So problem structure reflects how well decision maker understands the problem. So it has three elements, which are the data, procedures, and objectives. So yung data are the information or the values used to represent factors that are relevant to the problem. So, dapat connected siya sa problem. The next one is the procedure. So, these are the process to be taken or yung mga steps that are to be made para maayos yung problema, to solve the problem. So, the third one is the objectives. So, these are the desired result after solving the problem. When all those three elements are known with certainty, the problem is structured. So, structured problems include payroll calculation, while if any of those three characteristics identified are not known with certainty, the problem is unstructured. So, now let's discuss the types of management reports. So reports are used to convey information to managers. A management report may be a paper document or a digital image displayed on a computer terminal. The report may express information in verbal, numeric, or graphic form or any combination of these. So for example, pwedeng included dun sa report, pwede nila ipakita yung daily operations nila sa mga inventories, sa mga cost of, sa mga resources, like that. So there are two general reporting objectives. The first one is to reduce the level of uncertainty associated with a problem facing by the decision maker. So mare-reduce yung level of uncertainty because the report may contain some historical reports or some forecasted reports wherein aware yung decision maker dun sa mga pangyayari or sa mga current issues connected or relevant dun sa problem na sinusolve niya. So the second objective is to influence the decision maker's behavior in a positive way. So now let's proceed to the program reporting. Reporting provide information to solve problems that users have anticipated. So it has two subclasses. These are the scheduled reports and on-demand reports. Scheduled reports are produced according to an established time frame. It can be daily, weekly, or quarterly, and so on. It can be annually and like that. So examples are it can be daily listing of sales, a weekly payroll action report, or an annual financial statements. So on the other hand, on-demand reports are triggered by events and not by the passage of time. So it depends dun sa demand according to the situation. So for example, an accounts receivable manager respond to a customer problem over the telephone. The manager can display the customer's account history on the computer screen kasi yun yung needed by the customer or it is needed to solve the problem of the customer. So now let's proceed to the attributes of the report. These are relevance in summarization, exception orientation, accuracy, completeness, timeliness, and conciseness. So relevance means that each element of the information should be aligned to the decisions to be made by the managers. It should support the manager's decision. So irrelevant information might distract the manager's attention from the focus, dun sa main focus ng report. So the next one is the summarization. Reports should be summarized according to the level of the manager within the organizational hierarchy. So as I've said a while back, na managers at the higher level of the management requires more summarized information. The degree of summarization becomes greater as information flows from lower management upward to the top management. So the next one is exception orientation. Control reports should identify activities that are at risk of going out of control and should ignore activities that are under control. So para katulad dun sa management by exception, magfo-focus lang siya dun sa mga situations or operations that are out of control. So the next attribute is accuracy. So the information in reports must be correctly stated and it is free from material errors because it will cause the user to make the wrong decision. Kasi nga magkakaroon siya ng misinterpretation dun sa mga information na mailalagay dun sa reports if it has some material errors. So the next one is completeness. So every information that is needed or essential should be included dun sa report. There should not be essential information na hindi mailalagay dun sa report. The next one is timeliness. So dapat timely yung information na mailalagay dun sa management report natin. So take note that timely information that is sufficiently complete and accurate is more valuable than perfect information that comes too late to use. So kahit pa perfect yung information na ma-acquire mo, kung hindi na timely or hindi na siya relevant dun sa current situation, hindi na siya magagamit or it is useless. So dapat timely yung information natin. So, the last one is conciseness. So, the information in the report should be presented as concisely as possible, wherein hindi mo na kailangan gumamit ng malalalim na words or complex ideas to present the information. It should be explained or shown in a manner na maiintindihan ng user or maiintindihan ng manager. So take note that the reports should use coding schemes to represent complex data classifications and provide all the necessary calculations such as extensions and variances for the user. So, the focus or yung pinupunto lang ng conciseness is that it should be brief enough to be comprehensive.